Hello everyone, my name is Wayne Piercy, and today on my YouTube channel I wanted to do something a little bit different for you guys. Normally I upload videos of myself playing pieces and things like that, but today I want to talk about accessibility in music school and sort of my experience going through the college music environment and what that was like, and sort of the challenges that I faced talking to teachers and that sort of thing. I started at Berklee College of Music in 2007, where I majored in performance. I played both classical and jazz as a student. I participated in many types of ensembles. I did the orchestra for several semesters. I did contemporary chamber ensemble for a couple semesters. I did the New Orleans Jazz Ensemble for a couple semesters. I did a lot of different things. I led several of my own solo recitals, things of that nature. And I had, for the most part, a good experience, especially on the performance end of things. The part about music school that's really, I would say, the hardest, especially, not just in my case, but I think in a lot of other cases, is access to course materials such as music theory books, ear training books, other, musical textbooks of that nature. And not only that, but access to music technology, especially at the time that I went to school, was a much different landscape than it is today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So when I started classes at Berklee, I had really no idea what kind of trouble I was getting myself into as far as the kinds of issues I was going to face in my theory classes and ear training classes. There were no Braille books available for me in music theory. I didn't have access to Braille materials for ear training. I also had very little music technology training as a student. I was purchased a computer a few months before school started, but I didn't actually receive the computer until about 6 weeks into the semester. By this time, I was already in the heat of battle trying to navigate the environment, and the 1 week or so of music technology training that I did receive before I entered music school was completely forgotten by the time I got my own system. So I had to get really inventive, and I had to talk to teachers about how I could get through the landscape of what was being presented to me. So one of the things that I did was I went to teachers' office hours every week, because teachers, they would put things on the board. A lot of examples were handed out in class. There were things that were, posted on a projector, or there were examples that I needed to study, would have needed to study from a book. So I went to their office hours and did a lot of my assignments, all of my assignments, orally, meaning the teacher would demonstrate the concept in the office hour, and I would give them answers based on the questions they asked me. So if, for instance, in Theory 1, if they asked me, how do you spell C major triad? Well, it was my job to say C, E, G, and they would write it down. How do you spell a D minor triad? D, F, A, so on and so forth, and they would write the answers down for me on the paper. Analysis examples went sort of the same way. We would do the same types of things for analysis. So that was all well and good, and I got to understand the concepts that were being presented in the class, but the issue was that I wasn't able to write my own projects independently and do my own assignments independently, whereas sighted students were able to draw things, write things down on, 5-line staff paper and be able to turn it into their instructor if they didn't want to use the computer to do so. But for a blind student, that's much harder. Ear training was more of the same type of situation. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't have Braille books for ear training. I had a very, very limited working knowledge of Braille music, and when I say limited, I really do mean limited. So I had to show up to teachers' office hours when it was test time and try my best to write down examples. I was kind of making up symbols along the way. It was a real challenge to be able to try to, conduct with one hand, read a refreshable Braille display with the other hand, to try to get access to, to try to get through what was being asked of me. So I quickly figured out that I was missing out on a lot of things, and that I was going to come out of this place with a lot of missing holes in my education. Berklee College of Music is a very technologically oriented place. All students are expected to have a Mac with music software programs. Many of the programs at the time that I started as a student were not accessible at all. So not only did I not have access to, efficient music technology training, but even if I had gotten music technology training, the teachers at the school would have not been able to support me if I had an issue with completing an assignment, because the software that I would have been able to use and the software that all the other students were using was totally different. So, because of all of this, I started talking to the disability services coordinator at the college, and it took a while, took a couple of years of me going back and forth and really talking to him about what my needs were and what I felt like I wasn't getting as a student. But I finally got him on board, and he decided to host a music technology summit in 2009 with some of the best blind musicians around the country who were professionals in the field. And we talked about getting together a program for blind students, a lab for blind, visually impaired students. And we were able to do that. And Berklee hired a course instructor to teach in the summer of 2010 as a pilot course to see if we could get any takers, from a 5 week program. We had 4 students that summer. We had a couple of students from the Perkins School for the Blind, myself, and another student at the school going through the 4-year program. So that program went really well, and the course was made official in the fall of that year. So it was at that time, it was a very interesting situation to be in, because I didn't have the skills that I needed, but I knew what skills I needed. So that was very interesting, because I was able to sort of give advice to, the disability services coordinator at the college and other people involved, and sort of give them feedback in the beginning on how things were going, and was I happy with the results of the pilot program and that sort of thing. In 2011, I started work as a lab assistant in the program for blind students and continued that work until 2018. And during that time, mentoring and working there, I got to work with a lot of exemplary blind music students that came through the college. And not only did I help them with music technology, but I also helped them in talking to their teachers, being able to talk to their teachers about how they can best be accommodated. And that was a really rewarding experience, to be able to share what I went through to those other students so that they didn't have to struggle the way that I had to struggle through music school. So now that I'm no longer at Berklee, I've been focusing more on performing, but this is a very important thing, and I want to find other ways of getting the word out about music education for blind music students. And I want to let people know in this video that yes, it is very possible for blind musicians to be just as relevant in the field as sighted musicians. We may have to work a little bit differently, but we can still do so many things. And with current access to music technology, it's much better than it was when I was a student. We have opportunities that we've never had before. We can be successful composers, we can be successful audio engineers if we choose to go down that road. It's easier for us to be things like producers. So we don't just have to focus on performing all the time, which is very cool. It gives the blind musician more options and more freedom in today's ever-changing music industry. So I hope you guys found this video informative and interesting. I really enjoyed sharing this information with you. I'm going to do a couple more videos. One of those videos is going to be about how blind students can prepare to go to music school. What sort of things should they have right out of the gate so that they can hit the ground running? And I also want to do another video that is aimed at teachers, that lets teachers know what they can do if they in fact have a blind student in their class, and sort of the things that they can do to better accommodate them as they matriculate through the curriculum. So I hope you guys again enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like, share this with your friends. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. Also, if you guys have any questions in the comments, maybe you're a blind music student, maybe you're struggling right now at another institution where you also have no resources, or where the teachers are really worried about what to do with you, please ask in the comments and I will reply as soon as I'm able to do so. So thank you all again, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a great day, guys.